why are they dragging Carl? And you know I had to do my research. So I go, because you know I wasn't watching the whole thing, because I'm very much, if I don't mess with something, I'm not supporting it in no way, shape, or form. So I did not watch the Watch What Happened Live situation. But I watched clips. Y'all mean to tell me they dragging Carl for what we all have been saying about what he said about Annaya in Casa? So they mad because they saying Carl did not defend Annaya because she didn't need to be defended. The man, oh my God. He said he would not have stood with it. We all said it was distasteful. Should he have said some of them things? No. Could he have expressed himself a little better? Yes. But this disrespect, like he's the worst villain in the world.
So Carl says that he doesn't fault KC for the things that he said. No, I just want you all to start believing the people that were actually there, that were actually close to this man, instead of the narrative that you all can't seem to shake. It's not just Carl defending him. It's Sean defending him. It's Amora defending him. The After Sun girls. Everyone is saying something different than the monster that you are trying to make him. And it says a lot about you. The jig is up. It's up. And what's so sad is that those fans are now dragging Carl. Guys, how many times we gonna tell y'all, he ain't the monster that you want him to be? Give it up.
Well. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and I'm going to be going over what happened last night on Watch What Happens Live. People are in an uproar right now because Carl said he doesn't fault KC for the stuff that was said, and much of it was just locker room talk, and that has Annaya's fans in a uproar. And this is the thing that I've been lamenting throughout my other videos when it comes to the KC and Annaya situation. The girls were talking crap in the villa and the boys were talking crap in the villa. And people were only outraged about the things that KC said. And if we're being completely honest, as I said in my previous videos, when it comes down to men and women talking behind each other's backs, I guarantee you that there are women, and a lot of the women, who are mad about what KC said, right? Or how he said it. A lot of the women say worse things about men behind their backs, men who they're dating, because as I've come to understand right now, a lot of women don't like men, and they don't like black men specifically, right? And so I know that there are women out there who dog men out worse or even as bad as KC did with the things he said about Annaya in Casa Amor, with reference to Annaya in Casa Amor. Like, and this is why we've been preaching that a lot of it is just hypocritical. And look, the man who Annaya's fans have been praising, Carl, understands where KC was coming from. And if y'all were even paying attention, you would notice that even from the After Sun episode that Carl was on when he got voted off, they asked Corey what he thought about the Annaya and KC situation at the recoupling. And Corey basically said, I'm paraphrasing, that, you know, they all understood where KC was coming from and that him and Annaya were, you know, having petty arguments and butting heads a lot. And they understood why KC came back with TT and not wanting to recouple with Annaya. And the situations, let me go listen, because I don't want to, I'm coming in hot. I'm coming in hot. Let me. Oh, Corey essentially said he if he could give KC his flowers, he would give him. And basically they all saw how Annaya and KC, they were butting heads over petty situations, because the situations were petty. And if you even listen to Annaya on Watch What Happens Live, she doesn't even want to go into her and KC's situation. It's like she want to move on completely from it. But there are things that she needs to address about that situation, whether or not her fans want to agree. Like, why wasn't it okay for KC to go and explore Saul freely? Annaya kept on saying, KC, go explore Saul. I don't give a damn. And every time he went to have a conversation with Saul, that's Annaya coming to drag him away from the conversation. So how is it okay for him to go and explore, and when he's exploring, you don't like it? And then Casey straight up told you, I want to explore. You told Corbin you and Casey are open to exploring, and you guys have been transparent with each other, and you're open to exploring. So you knew Casey was open to exploring, and he told you that on the dock, point blank period, on the very first night when Saul arrived. So there was no confusion about whether or not Casey wanted to explore Saul, because he kept on telling you. Kept on telling Annaya. And then when the challenges came around, and then Bryce said what he said that got in Annaya's head, and Zach said what he said that got in Annaya's head, she went back to Casey picking fights. And it just so happened that after the conversation that Zach had with Annaya, Kata and Zach, when they were sitting on one of the couches outside, and she went and interrupted Saul's conversation after she's finished talking to Zach, and he explained what he meant by safe option. And then she went and took that back to KC as if KC was the one who said Annaya was a safe option, and KC didn't say anything like that. And I swear to God, when Annaya's fans are watching the show, they're listening to what these other men are saying about what KC isn't saying, and putting all of that on KC when KC didn't say none of that ish. He didn't, and he's been straight up with Annaya. And instead of Annaya sitting and having a conversation and coming to a full understanding about where her and KC stood, she always either cried, got angry, or walked away, or two or more of the above. And so that kept on happening. And Carl, as a grown-up man, as y'all are praising him to be and in control of his emotions, and is a safe space for Annaya where she doesn't have to feel insecure anymore, and whatever the case is, for him to recognize that situation was a mess and say that, what Casey said, he could have said it in a better way. And many of us, especially women who support Casey, we admit that whatever he said, he could have said it in a better way. But how he said it was the problem, but what he said was the absolute truth. Or for people to get mad at Casey saying him and Annaya have nothing in common, and I constantly said Annaya damn near alluded to the same thing, because she was mad happy, finally felt seen when Carl came in the villa, ready to jump him and have intercourse with him and say less, and it's the happiest she's ever been. That's equivalent to, oh my God, I don't have anything in common with this person, and I've been suffering for the last 3 weeks. So for Casey to have said that, I don't understand what's the big deal. Like, critical thinking skills would tell you that Annaya felt the same way. And there are several other things that I've discussed in my other videos. I don't even want to go over it in this video, but people are getting on Carl's behind right now just because he understood that it's locker room talk. And I'm not saying that it's right for Casey to have said the things how he said it, but what he said was actually what was transpiring. He wasn't getting kisses from Annaya. He was constantly having to beg for kisses, because we saw Casey in the beginning was this happily, bubbly, goofy guy, and then by the time before Casa Amor, he was stressed the hell out. He was stressed out. He lost his aura. He lost his smile. We all saw that happening. And we saw where Annaya deliberately didn't talk to him and iced him out, damn near iced him out. And we saw every night when they were going to bed, she turned her back to him. There wasn't any intimacy like that between them, particularly leading up to Casa Amor. We all saw it. So when Casey said him and Annaya have nothing in common, and when he said he doesn't have to beg for kisses anymore and all of that, like, that was literally happening to him in the villa. We saw at night when he would like kind of hover over Annaya, trying to get a little intimacy from her, and he wasn't getting that. And the whole grandma comment that people were mad at Casey about, the grandma comment had nothing to do with him wanting sex. Nothing. The grandma comment was because Annaya would go to bed early. So for Annaya fans to be even pissed about that as well, that just shows me that, like, that's not what I got when I watched this scene, because KC has not given me that he wants to have sex on the show, because I don't think him and TT did it, because if him and TT had sex, they would have shown it to us as another thing against the case in the case that they were building against KC, the producers. So they would have shown him and TT having sex. Meanwhile, Annaya was the one who gave Carl easy access. And I'm not saying that KC and TT didn't do any hanky-panky, but I'm saying they didn't show it to us. And what I'm saying is based on their track record and pattern recognition in how they were showing everything that KC did to pile on to the hate for him, they would have shown if him and TT did any hanky panky. That's the point that I'm trying to make. So throughout the entire villa, even KC said like he's a vanilla kind of dude. Like he's not into the whole, you know, BDSM and doing all sort of crazy stuff. So he didn't come across to me as somebody who was like hungry for intercourse on the show. He wanted physical intimacy in terms of affection. Like nothing is wrong with kissing at night before you go to bed, hugs and cuddles, rubbing up on each other. Like that's what the other people were doing, and nobody had issues with what they were doing. All the French frying and all that, Kata done had sex and it wasn't an issue. And if we're going to be mad about KC supposedly mad that he didn't get sex from Annaya and therefore that's why he's calling her grandma, all of that in quotation, if y'all are gonna be mad at KC for that, you should be mad at Kata for forcing Zach to have sex with her in the hideaway. The double standard and hypocrisy of it all, because literally that's what happened. And so when it comes to this show, this is the issue, like that's been plaguing the show, and y'all put on blinders when it comes on to the core four and their actions. And the grandma comment, we saw that at a movie night when Annaya saw it, she laughed, and her comment was, "I be sleepy," or something of the sort. "I be sleeping early," something of the sort. I'm paraphrasing. She said that, and then when previously to that, when I think it was Annaya and Trinity were having a conversation, and Annaya referred to her and KC in that conversation as both grandma and grandpa of the villa. Because early on, Annaya and KC were giving mom and dad. Let's admit it. So that's where the grandma comment is coming from. And if you notice, the other islanders did not get on KC for saying that when the movie night aired, because it's a running joke in the villa. So that grandma argument right now is a moot point. And to add to that also, Annaya referenced herself as grandma when her and KC were going to talk, like grandma's coming or something of the sort, as a jokey joke. So if it is that it was as serious as y'all are making it out to be about sex, Annaya would have brought that up as well. And I'm telling you that after learning so much about production, what I think production did in that scene to get people all riled up was, after KC and Corbin had that conversation, right? They probably went to Annaya and told Annaya that KC is mad for wanting to for not having sex or something of the sort, to get Annaya to say that and then juxtapose it with the scenes to make it look like Annaya is mad about KC saying that, calling her a grandma for sex and whatnot. Like, the producers do stuff like this. And so you have to rely on other context clues to not fall for the okie doke. Anyways, so people now are they're dragging Carl. Carl is being dragged for saying that he wouldn't have stood by. So he said a lot of the talk that KC said, like, I wouldn't have stood by, but like, I understand where he was coming from, and I think a lot of it was just like boy talk, locker room talk, because that's really how men talk. And women, when the women were having their locker room talk as well in the girls' room and bashing the boys. And in reality, this is really what we do. If you don't mess with a guy and he done did you dirty, you dog him out. And this is where the hypocrisy comes in, because while Casey just did his and we got to see it on TV, but for the rest of us, we're not being recorded like that. So there should be some amount of grace, and he took accountability. And I still see people online lamenting that KC needs to take accountability for what? He already did that. Him and Annaya had a conversation on the show. They apologized to each other. They moved on. Well, KC apologized to Annaya for that. She accepted his apology. They hugged it out. They moved on. They're in an amicable place. The rest of what Carr said, like, I grew up, I play football, I understand kind of how that went, but I think sometimes we're just in the villa for so long that we forget, like, really what happens when we're on camera, and that we constantly have mics, like, around our necks. So yeah, some stuff was probably said that shouldn't have been said, but like, it's tough in there, so I don't fault him. Right. So everybody, all of those people in the villa deserve grace, but we keep on relitigating the situation because people want to just hold Casey's feet to the fire as if he's the only one at fault. And whenever I see that happening, I'm always just forced to push back and say, well, for Annaya isn't completely innocent either. And so my wish is just for Aniya's fans to admit that she also contributed negatively with her behavior to the breakdown of the couple. Admit that she didn't want to allow Casey and Saul to explore, because if Casey and Saul had explored and gotten on, she would have been booted from the show. And her being worried, her insecurities coming out, her constantly crying and getting mad, and that was her manipulating the situation. And she could have comported herself in a better way. Jen didn't behave like that when Kenzie wanted to get to know Gal. And for Annaya, she always blamed Casey for women wanting to explore with Casey, because I remember just in the beginning when Melanie said to Annaya, I'm gonna pull Casey for a chat to make sense, and essentially what it was to make Sincere jealous, but she didn't say all of that. And the way she said it was like, I'm gonna pull Casey for a chat and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm gonna pull him and I don't care about your feelings or whatever. She didn't discuss it with Annaya. And then Annaya got mad at Casey for talking to Melanie after Melanie pulled Casey for a chat, after Melanie done told Annaya that she was gonna pull Casey for a chat. Why are you mad at Casey? And said, I just wish Casey would tell me that he wants to explore. And I'm like, what? Casey doesn't have any control over Melanie pulling him for a chat, especially in those early days. What you wanted to do, what did you want him to do? Like say, hey, no, I don't wanna talk with you. I'm coupled up with Annaya. I don't want anybody else. If y'all notice, Zach tried that shit. He told all of them he's just coupled up with Kada and he doesn't want to explore, and the producers told him, oh no, nobody's being closed off so early. And that's when you saw him forcing the chat with Jen in the beginning, and they were talking about One Direction and whatnot, and Kada and what's his name, Bryce, went off and quote unquote explored and talked and whatever. That's when y'all saw that happening, because the producers were never going to allow that, right? So it's just the double standards of it all. And most of us whose frontal lobes are developed, we can see the nuance of the situation, and other people who are Aniya's fans are just looking at the absolute, and they don't want to hear anything else outside of what they think is their truth, and everybody else is just wrong. And then they get super emotional about the situation and start calling you all types of names. Like, come on. Anyways, but Carl, like, okay, now I think they say he turned off his comments. I haven't checked, but yeah. The rest of what happened on Watch What Happened Live. So Bryce saying that KC hasn't texted him back. Like, really, Bryce? Trinity said that she hasn't watched the show. She's just watching like bits and pieces or here and there. She hasn't fully watched everything back yet. And I feel like she's deliberately not doing that, because they've heard, like, as Bryce, being concerned about KC, I think he saw the pieces, the think pieces going around, or where people are saying that he lied about KC. And I really want that to be addressed at the reunion, because Bryce's lie, or misconstruing what KC said, is primarily one of the main reasons why Casey got so much hate in that villa. That game of telephone with Bryce going to Zach, telling Zach one thing, going to Trinity, telling Trinity one thing, and then Trinity going to Annaya and telling Annaya one thing, and I'm pretty sure she told Kada as well, or Zach told Kada, and however it got around, it just made it look like Casey had it out for Trinity and Bryce, and that's not what happened. Casey said he would have been hot if him and Annaya weren't voted in. That was the answer to the question. And then he said also Zach and Kada didn't explore, so he was rooting for them to be in the top 4. And then Bryce said, so what about me and Trinity? We something about, they didn't explore or whatever. And Casey said, yeah, true, but you almost explored some shit. That's all Casey said. And that Zach took that and misconstrued it and told it in a different way, adding additional context to what Casey did not say. And I strongly believe that, well, not strongly believe, we heard Casey reassure Annaya so many times, and he was honest and upfront with her. But when Annaya took the information back to the girl, she made it seem as if Casey wasn't reassuring her and Casey wasn't being upfront with her. And so that's all of that led to the villa not liking Casey, because of Annaya wasn't completely honest with the girls either. Because if you were feeling some type of way about Casey, that's why Trinity was on Annaya to leave Casey alone, because of the things that Annaya was telling Trinity about Casey quote unquote not doing when he was doing all the things, also with the lie that Bryce told. And so if all of that was happening, why didn't Annaya still go and choose KC? If he was so terrible, why did you still choose KC at that recoupling when you had Carl? So she wasn't being honest. She was not being honest. Annaya wasn't being honest about what KC was really doing for her in that villa, and she made him look bad. She made him look bad on purpose. And I really want that to be addressed at the reunion. Annaya wanting TT, wanting to know what TT meant on After Sun by not being friends with everyone after the show. I mean, I don't think TT was referring to the girls, because her and the girls made amends, but more so like Zach, because remember when Zach was pulling her for the girlfriend proposal, and TT said, "You don't talk to me," or something like that, right? Paraphrasing, "You don't talk to me." So I don't think TT's wrong for saying she like, a lot of the people in the villa weren't into Casey and TT, so why would they want to be friends with them, with Zach in particular and Kada in particular, for saying some of the things that they said when they weren't voted in the top 4 for most compatibility? Girl, I don't think that has anything to do with Annaya. Wellington asking Annaya why she still supported Sincere even though he did Melanie wrong, and Annaya explaining that, you know, we really get to see an hour of their 24 hours, which is true, and they hit Melanie and Sincere, they really like each other, and they've built up, you know, the love for each other and care, and he really did a lot to prove to Melanie afterwards that, you know, to make up for what he did and all that. But I don't know, I don't think that was enough, because if you're gonna go at KC for basically being honest with you, he wasn't honest about how, and this is, I want to clarify this, because people are saying KC admitted that he wasn't being honest with Annaya. No, KC was being honest with about wanting to explore, right? KC was honest with Annaya about wanting to explore. He said that in After Sun. He was straight up with Annaya about wanting to explore. The part where he wasn't honest with Annaya about was how Annaya's actions were making him feel. He wasn't communicating with her like, "Damn, you're too much. You know, I'm struggling dealing with your past traumas or your insecurities, and that's making me feel some type of way. I want more affection and whatnot from you, and because I'm not getting that, that's what he wasn't honest with Annaya about, not wanting to explore and all that people were accusing him of. So because of that, it led up to him building resentment, and people are like saying, you know, he should have been honest about feeling resentment towards her as well. And I'm like, you don't know that you're building resentment until it ends up in a place where, okay, this is a lot. What is this feeling that I'm feeling towards this person? And then you realize, oh, it's because of this, and this, and what you're feeling is actual resentment. Resentment isn't just a one-off thing that just happens like that. It's something that builds up over time of, you know, repeated behavior and actions or whatever being done to a person. And so I think in that last conversation before, but they didn't know Casa Amor was coming, and I think KC probably wanted to have that conversation, but Annaya got up and walked away again without them getting to a resolve. Every time she got up and walked away, if she had just sat down and for them to finish their conversation and come to a conclusion and an understanding, because communication is when both parties reach a mutual understanding, right? So that did not happen because Annaya kept on walking away. So even if yeah, there wasn't any opportunity for communication to be had, and Annaya needs to take accountability for those actions. She really does need to take accountability for that, right? So her answer in supporting Sincere when treating KC the way they did and the situation and feeling outraged about that and not being outraged about what Sincere did, nope. The last thing was Carl said he got a lot of DMs asking him for money and he hasn't gotten any brand deals, so he can't help them out. What I'll say to that is, you know, people have been saying that, you know, Carl is this rich guy and he's, you know, Prince Charming and the savior for Annaya and da. And I'm like, we don't know Carl's, you know, situation, and not because he vacations in these places means that he's the one that's spending the money. He could be just tagging along, you know. Who knows? But he said, he hasn't gotten any brand deals yet. And my other thing to that is, like, I thought they were all working on brand deals for the core four and their men. Trinity seems to have a lot of brand deals because she mentioned, she has, DMs, a lot of brand deals in her DMs. And then the look on Aniya's face when she said that, I wonder how many brand deals Annaya has gotten as well. Annaya, they seem very, especially Annaya and Car. Annaya's energy she's so uncomfortable. And I think she's super hard on herself and wants to, look a certain way. I think there's a lot of unresolved feelings within Annaya herself. And I think also that she watched the show and she recognized that her behavior wasn't the best, but also it's difficult to even acknowledge that up front because she has so many fans and so many women who have backed her and supported her in spite of her behavior, and they see themselves in her. And if she now comes out and admits that she's wrong for how she behaved or the faults that she had in how she behaved, it's almost like she'd be doing a disservice to her fan base. And I think that's the conundrum right now that Annaya is in, where anybody who has sense or anybody who has Annaya's best interest at heart would actually point out that her behavior wasn't the best on the show, and she needed to have a lot more self-control, especially in her and confidence in moving through the villa pre-casa, regardless of whether or not your type wanted you, or regardless of whether or not you felt you should have been optimistic that somebody would come into the villa for you, but still go around talking to people, getting to know people, instead of internalizing everything that was happening to you. And because you internalized it manifested in you taking that out on KC because you were in a couple with him. And I think anybody with sense, if she's even going to talk to a therapist or somebody, they would have to point that out to her, that none of that was okay. And for her to even come, and I hope she can get to that point by the reunion, because I want the growth for Annaya, I really do. And her feeling, whatever she was feeling in the show, I'm not saying that it wasn't valid. We're all valid in the feelings that we have, so it's valid. Her feelings are valid, KC's feelings are valid. I just want her to acknowledge her part in the breakdown of the relationship, because they both didn't approach the situation in the best way, and KC being avoidant, and like as he said on his podcast, where he just doesn't want to be arguing with people anymore, and his whole attitude is, you got it, and sometimes that's not the way to go about conflict resolution. And so his attitude in that, coupled with Annaya and how she constantly was going at him, that led to that. And both of them were at fault. And I want Annaya to also take accountability the way KC has taken accountability for his actions. That's where we will have growth. And that's my entire gripe when it comes to Annaya and when it comes to Annaya's fans. It's not about hating Annaya. It's not about anything regarding hate. But we just want y'all to be honest. Anyways, I'll end my video here. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I just thought I had to come on and share all of that. And like, why, in the end, why do they have to bring up Nick and Alandria on Watch What Happens Live? This is for the core four. Well, part of the core four. Like, why did Nick and Alandria, and then they put it in a YouTube title? That wasn't necessary. That was not necessary. Yeah, we just need y'all to leave Nick and Alandria alone. They're broken up. It's what y'all wanted. Leave them be. Leave them to be in peace. And move on. We should all move on with our lives. We should all just move on with our lives. But yeah, them using Nick and Alandria again for clickbait and views. Like, we're so over it. We're so over it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And please be respectful. Okay, bye.